The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the Valiant as the computer detected something unusual. Captain Jack Morrison looked up from his reports and turned toward the communication station, where Lieutenant Amy Carter was frowning at her screen. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal. It's coming from about 4 light hours away," Amy said, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. Jack stood up and walked over to her station. The Valiant was a science vessel, not a warship. They had been studying a nebula formation when the signal came through. He looked at the data streaming across the screen. "Can you translate it?" he asked. Amy nodded and pressed a few buttons. The ship's computer began working on the alien language. After a moment, text appeared on the screen. Jack read it carefully. A ship called the Kalari transport vessel was under attack. They were requesting immediate help. The message said they were being boarded by Vraxian Empire forces and needed rescue. "Sir, the signal has a military priority code attached to it," Amy added. "That means whoever sent it considers this a serious emergency." Jack looked at the star map displayed on the main screen. The location was in disputed space, an area where several alien governments argued about who owned what. Going there could mean trouble. But someone was asking for help. Commander Lisa Hayes walked up beside him. She had been with Jack for 5 years and knew him well. "Captain, if we go there, we'll be crossing into territory the Vraxians claim as theirs. They don't like outsiders interfering in their business." Jack understood her concern. The Vraxian Empire was known for being aggressive and territorial. But he also knew that someone out there needed help. He had joined the space service to explore and to help people, not to ignore those in danger. How long to reach them? He asked Lieutenant Ben Parker at the navigation station. Ben checked his calculations. "If we push the engines hard, about 18 hours, sir." Jack made his decision. "Set course for those coordinates." Amy sent a message back to Earth Command. "Tell them we're responding to a military distress call and might need backup." Amy's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Message sent, sir. But at this distance, it'll take almost a day for them to receive it." What Jack didn't know was how his message would be received back on Earth. When Admiral Susan Blake got the communication at Earth Command headquarters, she read it 3 times. The words were clear. A human ship had received a military distress call and was going into hostile territory to help. The captain was requesting backup. Susan had been in the military for 30 years. She knew that when your people were in danger, you didn't leave them alone. She immediately called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. "Prepare the 3rd Fleet for immediate deployment," she ordered. "I want every available warship ready to go in 6 hours." Her second-in-command looked surprised. "Admiral, that's 37 ships. Are you sure we need that many?" Susan looked at him seriously. "Our people are going into a potential combat situation. If they need help, they're going to get everything we can send them. Start the preparations now." Within hours, the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled began getting ready. Carriers, destroyers, cruisers, and support ships all received the same orders. They were going to help the Valiant no matter what. Back on the Valiant, Jack and his crew had no idea what they had started. They were focused on reaching the Kalari ship in time. The science vessel moved through space as fast as its engines could manage. The crew was tense but determined. "Captain, I'm reading the distress signal more carefully," Amy said after several hours. "There's something odd about it. The translation program says the Kalari accidentally used a military code instead of a civilian one." Jack frowned. "What's the difference?" Lisa explained. "In galactic society, military ships are expected to handle their own problems. If you send a military distress call, most species assume you can defend yourself and won't respond. Civilian calls get more sympathy but still rarely get actual help. It's considered too risky to get involved in other people's problems." "That's ridiculous," Jack said. "If someone needs help, you help them. It doesn't matter what kind of code they use." "That's a very human way of thinking, sir," Lisa replied. "Most alien species have learned to stay out of conflicts that don't involve them directly." As the Valiant got closer to the coordinates, the sensors began picking up debris and energy readings. Ben studied the data carefully. "Captain, I'm detecting weapons fire ahead. Multiple ships. Looks like 6 smaller craft surrounding one larger vessel. The larger one's shields are almost gone." Jack leaned forward in his chair. "The Kalari ship?" "Most likely, sir. And the smaller ships match Vraxian patrol craft configurations." Lisa pulled up tactical information on her screen. "Sir, the Valiant isn't a warship. We have basic defensive shields and a few light weapons, but we're not designed for combat. If those Vraxian ships decide to attack us, we're in serious trouble. Jack knew she was right, but he also knew they had come too far to turn back now. Someone needed help, and they were the only ones who had answered the call. Amy, open a channel to the Vraxian ships. Let's try talking to them first. Amy worked her controls and nodded. Channel open, sir. Jack spoke clearly. Vraxian vessels, this is Captain Jack Morrison of the Earth ship Valiant. We have received a distress call from the Kalari transport. Under galactic maritime law, we request that you allow them to depart safely. They waited for a response. The translation took a moment, but finally a reply came through. The Vraxian commander's voice sounded annoyed. Human vessel, this is Vraxian territory. The Kalari ship violated our customs laws. They are being detained. You have no authority here. Leave now while you still can. Jack looked at his crew. They all looked back at him, waiting for his decision. He could leave and avoid a confrontation. That would be the safe choice. But the Kalari crew would likely die or be imprisoned. He thought about why he had become a captain in the first place. It wasn't to run away when things got difficult. Vraxian commander, we cannot leave while people are in danger. Please stand down and let us evacuate the Kalari crew. The response was quick and angry. You dare to give us orders? Leave now or face the consequences. Jack turned to Ben. Get us closer to the Kalari ship. Lisa, prepare a boarding team. If they won't let the Kalari go, we'll get them out ourselves. Lisa looked worried but nodded. Yes, sir. I'll get the team ready. The Valiant moved forward, its engines pushing hard. The 6 Vraxian patrol craft noticed the movement and began to position themselves to block the human ship. Jack watched the tactical display, his mind racing through possible options. What he didn't know was that his message to Earth had triggered a massive response. The Third Fleet was already on its way, traveling as fast as their faster-than-light engines could manage. Admiral Blake sat in her command chair, determined to reach the Valiant before anything bad happened. And far away on the Galactic Council's monitoring stations, sensors detected the unusual military movements. Human ships were mobilizing, Vraxian ships were gathering. Something was happening, and the galaxy was starting to pay attention. The Valiant continued forward, moving toward a confrontation that would change everything. The Vraxian commander Thexnel watched his screens as the human ship came closer. He had heard stories about humans and their dangerous home world, but he had never actually seen one of their vessels before. The ship looked small and didn't appear to be heavily armed. He clicked his mandibles together in what his species considered amusement. Sir, the human ship is still approaching, his weapons officer reported. Thexnal waved one of his forearms dismissively. Let them come. When they see we are serious, they will leave. Continue boarding the Kalari vessel. I want their cargo bay secured within the next 10 minutes. On the Valiant, Jack studied the positions of the Vraxian ships. They were spread out around the damaged Kalari transport, with 2 of them attached to its hull. The Vraxians were already inside, which meant time was running out. Ben, can you get us between those 2 patrol craft on the left? Jack asked, pointing at the tactical display. Ben studied the angles and distances. It'll be tight, sir, but yes. They won't expect us to move that quickly. Do it. Amy, keep trying to raise them on communications. Maybe we can still talk our way out of this. The Valiant suddenly accelerated, using its maneuvering thrusters in a way that surprised everyone watching. Science vessels were designed to move carefully around dangerous phenomena, like unstable stars and black holes. They could make precise movements that warships couldn't match. The Vraxian patrol craft tried to intercept, but the Valiant slipped between them before they could react. 2 of the Vraxian ships accidentally fired at each other in their confusion, their weapons missing the fast-moving human vessel. We're in position next to the Kalari ship, Ben announced. Lisa was already moving toward the exit. Boarding team is ready, Captain. We'll use the emergency airlocks. Jack nodded. Go. Get those people out of there. Lisa ran down the corridor where Lieutenant Danny Scott and 8 other crew members waited in their armored suits. These weren't military combat suits, but rather environmental protection gear designed for exploring dangerous planets. They were built to handle extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, and high radiation. Against most aliens, they would seem incredibly tough. All right, people, Lisa said over the communication channel. We go in, we find the Kalari crew, and we get them back to the Valiant. Stay together and watch each other's backs. Danny checked his cutting torch. What about the Vraxians already on board? Avoid them if possible. If not, remember your training. The team attached themselves to the Kalari hull and began cutting through. The metal gave way quickly under their industrial cutting tools. Within 2 minutes, they had made an opening large enough to enter. Inside the Kalari ship, the Vraxian boarding party was searching the cargo holds when they heard the sound of cutting metal. The squad leader, a soldier named Vekthas, ordered his troops to investigate. They found the humans coming through the hull. Vekthas had never seen a human before. They were smaller than Vraxians, but moved with surprising speed. The armored suits made them look bulky and dangerous. "Stop where you are," Vekthas ordered through his translator. "You are interfering with an official Vraxian operation." Danny looked at the alien soldiers. There were 6 of them, carrying weapons that looked like energy rifles. He kept his voice calm. "We're here for the Kalari crew. We're taking them to safety. They are under arrest. You will leave now." Danny shook his head. "Can't do that." Vekthas raised his weapon. "Then you will be arrested as well. What happened next would be studied by military analysts for years." Vekthas fired his energy weapon at Danny. The shot hit the human's chest armor, but the suit's shielding, designed to protect against radiation from dying stars, absorbed the blast easily. Danny didn't even slow down. The human team moved forward with frightening speed. They had trained in Earth's heavy gravity their entire lives. To them, the lower gravity on the Kalari ship felt like moving in slow motion. They crossed the distance to the Vraxian soldiers in seconds. The fight was over in less than 30 seconds. The Vraxians were trained soldiers, but they had never faced opponents like this. The humans hit harder, moved faster, and their armor protected them from weapons that should have stopped them. Within moments, all 6 Vraxian soldiers were unconscious on the floor. "Kalari crew, where are you?" Lisa called out through her translator. A small voice answered from behind a sealed door. "We are here, in the emergency shelter." Danny used his cutting torch to open the door. Inside, 16 Kalari huddled together. They were small creatures covered in soft fur, with large eyes that showed their fear. They looked at the humans in amazement. "It's okay," Lisa said gently. "We're here to help. Can you walk?" The Kalari leader, an older female, stepped forward. "Yes, we can move. But you should not have come. No one answers distress calls in this region. It is too dangerous." "Well, we're new to the neighborhood," Danny said with a smile she couldn't see through his helmet. "We haven't learned to ignore people who need help yet." The team led the Kalari back through the hole they had cut in the hull. One by one, they transferred the refugees to the Valiant. The whole operation took less than 10 minutes. On the Valiant's bridge, Jack watched as the last Kalari came aboard. "All clear, Ben. Get us out of here." Maximum speed. The science vessel turned and accelerated away from the Vraxian patrol craft. For a moment, it looked like they might actually escape without further trouble. Then Amy's console started beeping urgently. "Captain, 3 more ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're Vraxian destroyers." Jack felt his stomach sink. Destroyers were real warships, not patrol craft. Each one carried enough weapons to destroy the Valiant several times over. "How long until they're in weapons range?" he asked. 2 minutes at our current speed." Lisa had returned to the bridge. "Sir, we can't outrun destroyers. And we definitely can't fight them." "Can we jump to faster than light?" Jack asked Ben. Ben shook his head. "We pushed the engines too hard getting here. They need at least 5 minutes to cool down and recalibrate before we can safely make the jump." Jack looked at the countdown on the screen. They needed 5 minutes but only had 2. The math wasn't working in their favor. One of the rescued Kalari had followed Lisa to the bridge. Through the translator, she spoke to Jack. "Captain, I must ask. Why did you come? We used the wrong priority code in our panic. We marked the message as military when we meant civilian. But it does not matter. Military or civilian, no one responds to distress calls in this region. The risk is always too great. Why did you risk your ship and crew?" Jack looked at the small alien. "Because you asked for help." "That's enough reason." The Kalari's eyes widened. "Your species is very strange, Captain." Amy suddenly looked up from her console, her face pale. "Sir, I just realized something. Earth Command received our message. We told them we were responding to a military distress call in hostile territory. The implications hit everyone on the bridge at once. Earth Command would think they were under military attack. They would send help. A lot of help. Oh no," Lisa whispered. "They're sending the fleet." Jack closed his eyes for a moment. The Third Fleet was Earth's main military force. If they showed up here while Vraxian ships were attacking the Valiant, it would look like an act of war. "Amy, send another message. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them we don't need the whole fleet. Sending now, sir. But they won't receive it for hours. The fleet might already be on their way. The Vraxian destroyers were getting closer. Their weapons were powering up, ready to fire. Jack had to focus on the immediate problem. He could worry about the fleet later if there was a later. Ben, give me evasive patterns. Use everything this ship can do. Amy, try to contact those destroyers. Maybe we can explain. But the Vraxians had stopped listening. To them, the humans had committed an act of piracy. They had attacked Vraxian soldiers, stolen prisoners, and destroyed property. The penalty for such crimes was severe. The lead destroyer fired a warning shot that passed close enough to the Valiant to make the shields flare. They're not playing around, Lisa said. Jack gripped his chair's armrests. They needed a miracle. They needed help. They needed the cavalry to arrive. And somewhere in space, traveling faster than light, Admiral Susan Blake and the Third Fleet were racing toward them. The largest human military force ever assembled was about to arrive in a war zone. Neither the humans nor the Vraxians knew what was coming. But the galaxy was about to find out what happened when you threatened the Deathworlders. Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of the carrier Defiant, watching the countdown timer. Around her massive ship, 36 other vessels held formation. Destroyers, cruisers, frigates, and support ships all waited for the moment they would drop out of faster-than-light travel. 30 seconds to arrival, Captain Ryan Foster announced from his station. Susan took a deep breath. She had commanded ships for decades, but this was different. This was the first time human forces would potentially engage alien military forces. Everything they did in the next few hours would shape how the galaxy saw humanity for years to come. All ships, battle stations. Shields up the moment we arrive. Weapons ready, but do not fire unless I give the order, she commanded. The transition happened in an instant. One moment the view screen showed the swirling colors of faster-than-light travel. The next it displayed a scene of chaos. Debris floated everywhere. Energy readings spiked across multiple frequencies, and there were ships, dozens of them. Report, Susan ordered. Lieutenant Kevin Brooks, the tactical officer, worked quickly. 43 Vraxian ships detected. Configuration matches a full battle group with carrier support. They're engaged with Admiral, the Valiant is here. They're running on backup power. Shields at 30% and dropping. 6 destroyers are pursuing them. Susan's jaw tightened. All ships defensive formation around the Valiant. Launch fighters establish patrol. Someone get me a communication channel to the Vraxian commander. The Third Fleet moved with practiced precision. The massive ships positioned themselves between the Valiant and its pursuers. Hundreds of small fighter craft launched from the carriers, spreading out in protective patterns. On the other side of the battlefield, Vraxian Fleet Commander Zex Thor stared at his sensors in disbelief. His battle group had been conducting exercises in the next system when the emergency call came. A human ship had attacked Vraxian forces and stolen prisoners. He had brought every available vessel to intercept them. Now suddenly the humans had brought a fleet. A big fleet, how many ships? He demanded. 37 confirmed, Commander. Multiple capital ships, including at least 3 carriers. They're launching fighter craft now. I count over 200 small attack vessels. Zex Thor felt his blood run cold. The intelligence reports about human military capability had been vague at best. No one really knew how powerful Earth's forces were. It appeared they were about to find out. Open a channel to their commander. The communication link took a moment to establish. The translation system struggled to find common ground between the two very different species. Finally, a human voice came through. This is Admiral Susan Blake of the Earth Defense Force. We are here in response to a distress call from one of our vessels. We have no hostile intent toward the Vraxian Empire. Zex Thor's translator rendered his response in English. You violate our territory, attack our ships, steal our prisoners, and now you bring a fleet. These are not the actions of a peaceful species. We responded to a civilian distress signal, as required by galactic maritime law, Susan replied. Our vessel assisted a Kalari transport that was under attack. That is not an act of war. The Kalari violated our customs regulations. They were being legally detained. Your interference makes you complicit in their crimes. Susan looked at her political officer, Lieutenant Commander Greg Palmer. He shook his head slightly, indicating the legal situation was complicated. Different species had different laws, and what seemed right to humans might not be seen the same way by others. Nevertheless, Susan continued, We are prepared to discuss this matter through proper diplomatic channels. There is no need for further conflict. But in war, accidents happen. On one of the Vraxian destroyers, a young weapons officer named Krelvus misread his sensor display. He thought he saw a targeting lock from one of the human cruisers. Following his training, he activated defensive systems. The computer automatically designated the nearest human ship as hostile and prepared to fire. Krelvus hit the firing button. The energy beam lanced across space, missing the human cruiser Steadfast by 300 meters. It was a warning shot or perhaps a miss, but the intent was clear. Incoming fire, Lieutenant Brooks shouted on the Defiant. Vraxian destroyer just shot at the Steadfast. Susan had less than a second to make a decision. Return fire and start a war, or hold position and risk her fleet being destroyed. She thought about Jack Morrison and the Valiant, about doing what was right even when it was hard. All ships, defensive fire only. Target their weapons systems, not their hulls. Disable them. Do not destroy them. The Third Fleet opened fire. Human weapons had been designed and tested on Earth, a world where everything was extreme. The gravity was higher than most planets. The atmosphere was thick and corrosive. The radiation from the sun was intense. Every piece of human technology was built to survive the worst conditions imaginable. When that technology was used against ships designed for gentler environments, the results were dramatic. The first volley from the human fleet tore through Vraxian shields like they barely existed. Precision strikes hit weapons emplacements, missile tubes, and targeting systems. Explosions blossomed across the Vraxian ships as their offensive capabilities were systematically destroyed. The Vraxians returned fire, but their weapons were less effective. Human shields had been designed to protect ships during solar storms and while passing through asteroid fields at high speed. Energy weapons that would cripple most alien vessels were absorbed and dispersed by human defensive systems. Zexthor watched in horror as his battle group was taken apart piece by piece. His ships weren't being destroyed, which somehow made it worse. The humans were showing that they could have annihilated his entire force but chose not to. It was a demonstration of power and restraint that sent a clear message. Cease fire. All ships, cease fire, he ordered desperately. The battle lasted 7 minutes. When it ended, every Vraxian ship in the battle group had been disarmed. Not a single vessel on either side had been destroyed, but the tactical situation was completely one-sided. The humans had won without even trying very hard. Susan's voice came over the communication channel again. Commander Zexthor, I believe we have demonstrated that neither of us benefits from continued hostilities. May we discuss this situation rationally? Zexthor looked at his tactical displays. His pride wanted him to refuse, to call for reinforcements and continue the fight. But his training and experience told him that would be suicide. The humans had shown incredible restraint. If they had wanted to destroy his fleet, they could have done it easily. Agreed, Admiral Blake, he said quietly. But you must know this incident will be reported to the highest levels of the Vraxian government. As it will be reported to mine, Susan replied. I suggest we both hope our diplomats are more reasonable than our current circumstances might indicate. On the Valiant, Jack Morrison watched the aftermath of the brief battle. His small science vessel sat protected in the middle of the human fleet, safe but overwhelmed by what had just happened. He had sent a message asking for backup, and Earth had sent everything. The Kalari refugees in his medical bay were equally stunned. They had lived their entire lives in a galaxy where no one helped anyone else. The risks were too great, the rewards too small. Yet these strange humans from a death world had not only answered their distress call, but had brought an entire fleet to protect them. One of the Kalari, the elderly female who had spoken to Jack earlier, approached him in the corridor. Captain Morrison, I do not understand your species. You risked everything for people you do not know. Why? Jack thought about the question. Because it was the right thing to do. Isn't that reason enough? For humans, perhaps, she replied. But the galaxy is not like you. We have learned that helping others often brings only trouble. Your people will learn this lesson too, I think. Maybe, Jack admitted. Or maybe we'll teach the galaxy a different lesson. Throughout the star system, sensors from a dozen different species recorded everything that had happened. The brief engagement would be analyzed in military academies across the galaxy. The humans, the newcomers from the Death World, had just demonstrated combat capabilities far beyond what anyone had estimated. On Earth, News of the incident began spreading through government channels. President Sarah Mitchell convened an emergency cabinet meeting. The reports were clear. Human forces had engaged in combat with the Vraxian Empire, one of the galaxy's major powers, and had won decisively. "What are our options?" Mitchell asked her advisors. Secretary of Defense William Carter pulled up casualty reports. "Remarkably, we didn't lose a single ship. Neither did the Vraxians, actually. Admiral Blake followed rules of engagement perfectly. She disabled their weapons but avoided destroying their vessels. That won't matter if the Vraxians want revenge," Secretary of State Helen Torres pointed out. "We just humiliated their military in front of the entire galaxy. We also saved lives and responded to a distress call," Mitchell countered. "We were in the right even if the execution was messy." General Peter Hamilton leaned forward. "The question now is what happens next. Do we pull back and apologize? Do we stand firm? The galaxy is watching, and our response will define how they see us." Mitchell looked at the star chart showing human territory and the vast expanse of... The Galactic Council chamber was a massive circular room that orbited the neutral world of Axis Prime. Holographic projections of representatives from 47 different species filled the space, each one appearing as if they were actually present. This emergency session had been called just hours after the human Vraxian incident, and tensions were high. Council Speaker Veltran, a being made of living crystal whose species had helped found the Council 800 years ago, stood at the center. Their voice, translated into dozens of languages simultaneously, resonated through the chamber. "We gather to discuss the incident involving human military forces and the Vraxian Empire. All present have reviewed the sensor recordings. We must now determine the appropriate response." Ambassador Chen Lin sat in the human delegation area, trying to stay calm. She had spent 2 years building relationships with other species, convincing them that humanity was peaceful and could be trusted. Now all that work seemed wasted. She watched as the Vraxian ambassador Kexval rose to speak. "The facts are clear," Kexval said, his translator making his anger obvious. "Human forces violated Vraxian sovereign territory, attacked our vessels, interfered with legal detention of criminals, and then brought military forces to threaten us. This council must recognize the danger they represent." Before Chen could respond, another voice spoke up. Ambassador Plen of the Kalari Communion stood, their fur rippling with emotion. "The humans saved the lives of 16 of my people when no one else would. They answered a distress call that others ignored. This is not the action of an aggressor species." Kexval turned toward Plen. "They used overwhelming military force. They disabled an entire battle group in minutes. Such capability cannot be ignored or excused." Chen stood, activating her translator. "With respect, we responded to a distress signal. That is what any moral species should do. Yes, we brought military forces, but we did not know what situation we would find. And when combat occurred, we disabled your weapons but did not destroy your ships. We showed restraint." "Restraint?" Kexval's mandibles clicked rapidly. "You humiliated the Vraxian military in front of the entire galaxy. You demonstrated weapons capability far beyond what you had disclosed to this council. How can we trust a species that hides such power?" Veltran raised a crystalline limb for silence. "Ambassador Chen, the Vraxian concern is not without merit. Your species is new to the galactic community. The level of military capability you demonstrated was unexpected. Can you explain why humanity possesses such powerful weapons?" Chen had prepared for this question. "We don't possess powerful weapons. We possess normal weapons designed for our environment. Our homeworld, Earth, is classified as a Class 12 death world. Everything there tries to kill us. The gravity, the weather, the native life forms, even the bacteria. We build everything to survive the worst conditions we can imagine. When those same tools are used in gentler environments, they seem more effective than we intended." An ambassador from the Telvar Consortium, a species known for their merchant fleets, spoke up. "Are we to believe this was all an accident? That you stumbled into a conflict and just happened to have the exact military force needed to win?" "We didn't stumble," Chen replied firmly. "We responded to a distress call as galactic maritime law requires. When our ship was threatened, we sent help. That's not aggression. That's protection of our people." Ambassador Theron of the Kovacs Collective, one of the oldest species in the Council, spoke with a voice that carried the weight of centuries. "The issue, Ambassador Chen, is not whether your actions were justified in your eyes. The issue is what your capability means for the rest of us. You have shown that you can defeat one of the galaxy's major military powers with ease. How do we know you will not use this power to expand your territory or impose your will on others? Chen met Theron's gaze steadily. Because we have no interest in conquest. We want to trade, to learn, to share knowledge and culture. What happened with the Vraxians was a tragic misunderstanding. We thought we were rescuing civilians. We didn't realize it would escalate like it did. The debate continued for hours. Some species argued for sanctions against humanity, limiting their military expansion and technology exports. Others saw opportunity, wondering if the humans could be convinced to serve as peacekeepers or defenders against pirates and raiders. A few simply wanted to understand these strange beings from the death world better. During a break in the session, Chen received a message from Earth. President Mitchell had made her decision. Humanity would stand by its actions and would not apologize for helping people in distress. Chen would have to make that position clear to the council. When the session resumed, Chen requested permission to make a statement. Veltran granted it, and she stood before the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. This council has debated for hours about what humanity's actions mean for the galaxy. Let me be clear about who we are and what we believe. We come from a world that has tried to kill us since the day our species evolved. We survived by helping each other, by working together, by never leaving anyone behind. That is not a weakness we will outgrow. It is a core part of who we are. She paused, looking around the chamber. When we heard a distress call, we responded. When our ship was threatened, we protected it. We used the minimum force necessary to achieve our goals. We disabled ships but did not destroy them. We could have killed thousands, but chose not to. If that makes us dangerous in your eyes, then I'm sorry, but we will not change. Kexaval started to respond, but Veltran stopped him. Ambassador Chen, your passion is noted. But passion alone does not resolve conflicts. What does Earth propose as a solution to this situation? Chen took a breath. This was the critical moment. We propose new protocols for distress call responses, clear rules that all species agree to follow. We also propose that humanity will coordinate with local authorities before deploying military assets in the future, when time allows. In return, we ask that the Vraxian Empire acknowledge that they neglected their duty to respond to the Kalari distress call. The chamber erupted in discussion. Veltran called for order, and slowly the noise died down. Over the next several days, negotiations continued in smaller groups. Evidence emerged that the Vraxian Empire had indeed ignored multiple distress calls in the region over the past months. 3 ships had been lost with all hands because no one responded to their calls for help. This revelation changed the tone of the discussions. The humans were no longer seen as aggressive outsiders, but as species willing to do what others would not. Slowly, a compromise began to take shape. The Council would establish new requirements for distress call responses. All member species would be required to render aid when possible and safe to do so. Humans would agree to better coordination with local governments before deploying military forces. The Vraxians would pay reparations to the Kalari Communion for their negligence. Chen stood before the Council one final time to formally accept the agreement. Humanity agrees to these terms. We hope this incident, though difficult, leads to better protection for all who travel through space. The vote was called, and the measure passed. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. A new era of cooperation and mutual responsibility had begun, born from a misunderstanding and a rescue mission that had spiraled out of control. But Chen knew the real impact had little to do with official protocols. Every species in the galaxy now had detailed sensor logs of the brief battle. They had seen what human ships could do, how human marines fought, how human commanders made decisions. Military analysts across 100 worlds were studying the data, trying to understand the Deathworlders better. Some would see humans as potential allies, powerful friends who could protect them. Others would see them as threats to be contained or eliminated. Still others would simply be curious, wanting to learn more about these strange beings who valued life so highly that they would risk war to save strangers. As Chen left the council chamber, she received another message from Earth. The Kalari refugees had officially requested asylum and President Mitchell had granted it. Furthermore, the Kalari Communion had proposed a formal alliance with humanity, the first such agreement Earth would make with an alien civilization. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had proven they could fight, but more importantly, they had proven they would fight for others. That combination of capability and compassion was something the galaxy hadn't seen in a very long time. On distant worlds, young beings from a dozen species watched recordings of the incident and made decisions about their futures. Some applied to human universities wanting to study on the famous Deathworld. Others sought positions in diplomatic services, hoping to build bridges between their people and these newcomers. A few even began training to serve on the new joint peacekeeping forces that were being discussed. The Deathworlders had arrived on the galactic stage. Now everyone would have to adjust to what that meant. For some, it would mean opportunity. For others, challenge. But for all, it meant change was coming, whether they were ready for it or not. 3 months after the incident, Captain Jack Morrison stood in the observation deck of Unity 1, a newly constructed diplomatic station orbiting at the edge of human space. Through the transparent walls, he could see ships from a dozen different species arriving and departing. It was strange to think that his decision to answer one distress call had led to all of this. Admiral Susan Blake walked up beside him carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Jack. "Thought you could use this." Jack accepted it with a grateful smile. "Thanks, Admiral. I'm still getting used to all this. 6 months ago I was just running surveys of nebulas. Now I'm some kind of symbol for human-alien cooperation." Susan laughed. "That's what happens when you start a diplomatic revolution. Though I don't think you meant to." "Definitely not," Jack agreed. He gestured at the ships outside. "Do you think it will last? All this goodwill and cooperation? I think we showed the galaxy something important," Susan said. "That helping others doesn't have to be complicated. You saw people in danger and you helped them. It really is that simple." A message came through on Jack's communicator. Lieutenant Amy Carter's voice sounded cheerful. "Captain, they're ready for you in conference room 3. The joint task force is gathering." Jack and Susan walked through the station's corridors. Unity 1 had been built specifically to serve as neutral ground for the various diplomatic initiatives that emerged from the crisis. It was staffed by personnel from multiple species, all working together to prevent future misunderstandings. The conference room held an unusual mix of beings. Human diplomats sat beside Vraxian military officers. Kalari representatives worked with members of the Galactic Council's Security Committee. At the head of the table sat Commander Zexthor, the Vraxian fleet commander who had fought against the humans just months ago. Zexthor stood as Jack entered. "Captain Morrison, thank you for joining us." Jack sat down, still feeling slightly uncomfortable. "Commander, how are the preparations going?" "Well," Zexthor replied. His translator had improved significantly, making conversations easier. "The sensor-sharing network is nearly ready for testing. Ships in distress will automatically transmit to all nearby vessels regardless of species. Response coordination will be handled through the network to prevent the kind of confusion that brought our fleets into conflict." One of the Kalari delegates, an elder named Pren, added, "The Communion has already installed the network on all our vessels. We have seen immediate benefits. 2 of our ships received help last week when they had engine failures. Before they would have drifted until they died." Jack felt a sense of satisfaction. This was why he had become a captain, to make a real difference. "That's good to hear. What about the training programs?" Susan pulled up a display showing various statistics. "The Joint Training Initiative has exceeded expectations. We have Vraxian officers learning human rescue techniques. Human Marines are studying alien combat doctrine, and we've had requests from 6 other species to join the program." Zexthor clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "I must admit, Captain, when I first fought against your people, I thought you were reckless and aggressive. Now I see it differently. You are fierce in protecting others, but you show restraint and wisdom. It is a combination my people have much to learn from." "And we're learning from you," Jack replied honestly. "Your people have been traveling the stars for centuries. You know things we're still figuring out. This cooperation benefits everyone." The meeting continued for several hours, working through details of the new protocols and programs. When it finally ended, Jack found himself approached by a young Vraxian officer named Trelvik. "Captain Morrison, may I speak with you?" she asked. "Of course. What can I do for you?" Trelvik seemed nervous. "I have applied to serve on a human vessel as part of the exchange program. I want to learn how you train, how you think, how you make decisions, but I am worried I will not be accepted." Jack smiled. "Why would you think that?" "We're looking for people who want to learn and share knowledge. That sounds like you." Because I fought against you, Trelovic admitted. I was on one of the destroyers that pursued the Valiant. I fired weapons at your ship. How can your people trust me now? Jack considered his response carefully. We were following orders on both sides. You did your duty as you understood it. Now we have a chance to build something better. I think that's worth more than holding grudges. Trelovic's posture relaxed slightly. Thank you, Captain. I hope to serve with honor. Later that day, Jack received a tour of the station's residential areas. To his surprise, he found groups of humans and aliens living and working together. A human engineer helped a Kalari mechanic repair a power system. Human children played with young Vraxians in a common area, their laughter needing no translation. In the medical bay, he met Dr. Carol Hughes, one of the human doctors assigned to the station. She was treating a Telvar patient while explaining human medical techniques to an alien physician. How's it going, Doctor? Jack asked. Carol looked up and grinned. Fascinating, Captain. Did you know that Telvar physiology is completely different from ours? But they still respond to many of the same basic treatments? We're learning so much from each other. The Telvar patient, a merchant captain named Kelvan, spoke through his translator. Human medicine is very aggressive but very effective. They treat illness like it is an enemy to be defeated. It makes sense for a species from a death world. Jack spent the rest of the day exploring the station and talking to its inhabitants. Everywhere he went, he saw evidence of cooperation and cultural exchange. It wasn't perfect. There were still misunderstandings and arguments. But people were trying, and that mattered. That evening, he joined Susan and several other officers in the station's observation lounge. Through the windows, Earth was visible as a small blue dot in the distance. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had ignored that distress call? Susan asked. Jack thought about it. Sometimes. We would have avoided a lot of trouble. The Kalari crew would have died or been imprisoned. The galaxy would have kept ignoring people in danger. And we would have missed a chance to make things better. No regrets, then? None, Jack said firmly. We did the right thing. I'll always believe that. On Earth, the impact of the incident continued to spread. Trade agreements were being negotiated with multiple species. Cultural exchange programs brought alien students to human universities and sent human students to study on other worlds. Scientists from different species collaborated on research projects that had been impossible before. President Sarah Mitchell addressed the United Nations. Her speech broadcast across the planet and to human colonies throughout the solar system. 6 months ago, one of our ships answered a distress call and changed our place in the galaxy. We showed that humanity would not ignore those in need, even when it was difficult or dangerous. That decision has opened doors we didn't know existed. We now have friends among the stars, partners who share our values and our hopes for the future. She paused, looking at the representatives from around the world. But friendship requires work. It requires understanding and patience. It requires us to be our best selves, not just for our own sake, but for the sake of all the species we now interact with. The galaxy is watching us. Let's show them that the Deathworlders can be builders, not just fighters. The speech was well received both on Earth and across the galaxy. Other species noted the human emphasis on cooperation and mutual benefit. It was different from how many civilizations approached interstellar relations, which were often based on pure self-interest. Back on Unity 1, Jack received news that the Valiant had completed its repairs and upgrades. The ship now carried not just scientists but also diplomats and cultural liaisons. Their next mission would take them to the Telvar Consortium to discuss joint exploration of uncharted regions. Before leaving, Jack recorded a message to be sent to Earth Command. This is Captain Jack Morrison of the Valiant. We're about to start our first official diplomatic mission. It's strange to think that answering one distress call led to all of this. But I suppose that's how change happens. One decision, one action building on another. He paused, thinking about everything that had happened. To anyone who might face a similar choice someday, I'd say trust your instincts. If someone needs help, help them. The consequences might be unpredictable, but doing nothing is worse. We're all traveling through the darkness of space together. We might as well help each other along the way. The Valiant undocked from Unity 1 and turned toward the stars. Its crew was ready for whatever came next, confident in their mission and their values. Throughout the galaxy, the ripples of their actions continued to spread. Young beings from multiple species looked at the humans and saw a different way of thinking about power and responsibility. Military academies studied human tactics not for conquest but for defense. Diplomats referenced the incident as an example of how crisis could become opportunity. The Deathworlders had shown they could fight. Now they were proving they could build, and the galaxy was watching with growing interest to see what they would do next. 1 year after the incident, the galaxy looked very different. Captain Jack Morrison sat in his ready room aboard the Valiant, reviewing reports from across human space and beyond. The changes were remarkable and sometimes hard to believe. A message appeared on his screen from Admiral Susan Blake. She was requesting a video call, and Jack accepted immediately. Susan's face appeared, looking tired but satisfied. "Jack, have you seen the latest numbers?" she asked. "Just reading them now. 47 distress calls answered in the past year, with 0 deaths." "That's incredible," Susan nodded. "The new protocols are working. Ships from multiple species are coordinating rescues, sharing resources, and actually helping each other. It's become almost routine now, which is exactly what we hoped for." Jack leaned back in his chair. "Sometimes I still can't believe all this came from one decision. We just did what felt right." "That's what makes it matter," Susan replied. "You didn't calculate the political impact or worry about the consequences. You saw people who needed help and you helped them. That simplicity is what resonated with the galaxy." After the call ended, Jack walked through his ship. The Valiant had changed too. His crew now included 3 Kalari scientists, 2 Vraxian military advisors, and a Telvar engineer. They worked alongside the human crew members, sharing knowledge and learning from each other. In the science lab, he found Lieutenant Ben Parker working with Pelrim, one of the Kalari scientists. They were studying samples from a newly discovered planet. "How's the research going?" Jack asked. Pelrim looked up, her large eyes bright with excitement. "Captain Morrison, this is wonderful. Ben has shown me human analysis techniques that are much faster than our traditional methods, and I have shared Kalari classification systems that help organize the data better. Together we are accomplishing more than either species could alone." Ben smiled. "It's true, sir. Having different perspectives makes the work better. We see things the other might miss." Jack continued his tour, finding similar scenes throughout the ship. In engineering, human and Telvar crew members collaborated on improving the ship's systems. In the medical bay, Dr. Carol Hughes trained with a Vraxian medic on treating injuries from different species. Everywhere he looked, he saw cooperation and friendship. On Earth, the changes were even more visible. The city of Geneva had become the unofficial capital of human-alien relations. Embassies from a dozen species occupied buildings throughout the city. Markets sold goods from across the galaxy. Restaurants served foods from multiple worlds with varying success. President Sarah Mitchell walked through one of these markets with Ambassador Chen Lin, who had returned to Earth for consultations. They stopped at a stall where a human merchant was selling Kalari textiles. "Business is good?" Mitchell asked the merchant. The woman nodded enthusiastically. "Amazing, Madam President. People want to experience alien cultures. These fabrics are beautiful and the Kalari need the income. It's good for everyone." Chen smiled. "This is what I hope to see. Not just political agreements, but real connections between ordinary people." "How are things at the Galactic Council?" Mitchell asked as they walked. "Getting better," Chen replied. "We're no longer seen as dangerous outsiders. Now we're valued partners. 3 more species have requested defense agreements with us. They want human ships to help patrol their trade routes and respond to emergencies." Mitchell looked thoughtful. "Are we ready for that kind of responsibility?" "I think so. We've proven we can use force responsibly, and having human presence in multiple regions will help stabilize things. Pirates and raiders are less active in areas where they know human ships might respond." They reached a small cafe and sat down. Mitchell ordered coffee while Chen chose tea. For a moment, they simply enjoyed the peaceful scene around them. "Do you remember a year ago when we were terrified we had started a war?" Mitchell asked. Chen laughed. "I remember. I thought my career was over. Instead, it became the foundation for everything we've built since." "What changed?" Mitchell wondered. "Why did the galaxy respond so positively to what could have been a disaster?" Chen considered the question carefully. "I think they were tired. Tired of everyone looking out only for themselves. Tired of ignoring problems until they became catastrophes. The humans showed a different way. We proved that helping others doesn't make you weak, it makes you stronger." That resonated with a lot of species who had forgotten that truth. Back on Unity 1, a very different kind of meeting was taking place. Young officers from multiple species gathered in a training room, where Lieutenant Danny Scott was teaching hand-to-hand combat techniques. The key is using your opponent's strength against them, Danny explained. He demonstrated with a Vraxian volunteer, showing how proper technique could overcome size and power differences. Trelvik, the young Vraxian officer Jack had spoken with months ago, watched carefully. She had been accepted into the exchange program and had spent the past 6 months learning from human instructors. Now she was one of the top students combining Vraxian tactical thinking with human combat methods. After the class, she approached Danny. "Instructor Scott, I have a question. Human combat doctrine emphasizes protecting others, even at risk to yourself. Why? Logically, self-preservation should be the priority." Danny thought about how to explain it. "On Earth, we learned early that we survive together or not at all. Our world was too dangerous for anyone to make it alone. So we developed this instinct to protect the group, to help each other, to never leave anyone behind. It's not logical, you're right. It's deeper than logic. It's who we are." Trelvik nodded slowly. "I am beginning to understand. It is not weakness as I first thought. It is a different kind of strength." "Exactly," Danny said with a smile. On the Kalari homeworld, a ceremony was taking place. The communion was dedicating a memorial to the 16 refugees who had been rescued by the Valiant. Thousands gathered to witness the unveiling of a sculpture showing a human hand reaching down to lift up a Kalari figure. The inscription read in both languages, "When no one else would come, they came. When no one else would help, they helped. This is the measure of true friendship." Ambassador Plen gave a speech that was broadcast across Kalari space. "1 year ago, our people were abandoned to die. We sent a distress call expecting nothing, because that is what the galaxy had taught us to expect. Then the humans came. They risked everything to save people they had never met, from a species they barely knew existed. They started a war to protect us. They changed the entire galaxy because they believed in a simple idea, that all life has value." The speech was heard not just by Kalari but by dozens of other species. It reminded everyone of how things had changed and why those changes mattered. Back on the Valiant, Jack received a priority message from Earth Command. A distress call had been detected in a nearby system. This time it was a Vraxian cargo ship with engine failure. Jack smiled at the irony.
Amy, acknowledge the signal.
"Tell them we're on our way. Ben, plot a course. Let's go help our friends." The crew moved efficiently, everyone knowing their role. As the ship changed course, Jack reflected on how normal this had become. Answering distress calls, helping those in need, working with alien species. A year ago it had been revolutionary. Now it was just what they did. The Valiant wasn't alone in responding. Sensors showed 2 other ships also changing course toward the Vraxian vessel. One was a Kalari transport that had been nearby. The other was a Telvar merchant ship. All 3 were coordinating their approach through the new emergency network. "Multiple ships responding," Amy reported. "The Vraxians are acknowledging all of us." "They sound relieved." "Good," Jack said. "That's how it should be. No one should face trouble alone." As they approached the disabled ship, Jack thought about the journey that had brought them here. One distress call, answered when it would have been easier to ignore it. One decision that seemed obvious at the time but turned out to change everything. He knew there were still challenges ahead. Not everyone in the galaxy was happy with the changes. There were species who preferred the old ways, where everyone minded their own business and let others suffer. There were political complications and cultural misunderstandings that would take years to sort out, but the foundation had been laid. The galaxy had learned that cooperation was possible, that different species could work together for common good, that helping others made everyone stronger. In the year since the incident, 47 ships had been saved. Hundreds of lives had been preserved. Dozens of species were talking to each other, who had barely acknowledged each other's existence before. Trade was increasing. Cultural exchange was flourishing. Military tensions were decreasing, all because one captain decided to answer a distress call. The Valiant reached the Vraxian ship and began coordinating the rescue with the other responding vessels. The Kalari transport provided spare parts. The Telvar ship offered towing assistance. The Valiant's crew worked alongside Vraxian engineers to repair the damaged systems. Within a few hours, the cargo ship was operational again. The Vraxian captain sent a message of thanks to all 3 rescue ships. "This is Captain Vexcal of the cargo vessel Prosperity. I thank all who responded to our call. A year ago, I would have drifted here until my supplies ran out because no one would have come. Today, 3 ships,